Thank you, Tina. And so I'm sure everyone's hearts is open, but I'll do my normal step down from the stage and share with you my humble life as a minister routine. And actually, I can add to it, because at first I forgot. So Michael Gott, everyone know who Michael Gott is? So he taught our music ministry song. And the first night he said, every one of you ministers are going to sing by yourself if you want to get out of this class. So I attempted to sing Tina's song, and Michael Gott watched me go through at least 2 panic attacks before he helped me out and sang beside me. But it's teen camp time, right? And the only thing I got wrong is timing. My beloved Nicole had the pulpit last week, and all she had to do was get our beloved teens up here to melt your hearts and make you feel good. And But from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for what you do for our teens, because this year for winter camp, we were able to bring 7 teens and 2 advisors on 100% scholarships. Wow. And believe me, I've seen it with my own eyes. There's nothing as transformational as what they go through in teen camp. And let me tell you a little bit about how it goes is that I'm an advisor, and when I show up there, I get paired with another adult advisor between the ages of 19 and 80, and we form this family group. So this family group meets and does intensive, like 2 to 2.5 hour workshops twice a day. And it's sort of like June's workshop, except the teens take it to another level, because they're okay being raw, they're okay being vulnerable, and the love they show for each other is just immense. And so I've never seen transformation in individuals like I have in that camp. And it was really special this time for Nicole and myself, because they honored us by letting both Nicole and I speak to the entire 100+ teens there. And for me, it was Martin Luther King weekend, so I used my favorite message of Dr. King, the 3 dimensions of a complete life. And Nicole did her normal, stellar, bubbly, enthusiastic talk. And so they both like us very much. So in teen vernacular, they described me as chill, with great stories. And they described Nicole as bubbly and effervescent and the best person ever. But I missed my timing, so I do have a talk I'm going to give you. So the talk is past, present, or future. And I said in the 9 o'clock session, and Travis sort of loaded the deck earlier, that most religious scientists think they know the answer for the teacher or minister. But we'll be honest all through this talk. So honestly, how many of you really relate to, warm up to past experiences? You do good about learning from the past? Or you make use of it, any of past people? And how about future people? How many of you use the future to help yourself out? You resonate with the future, you like to plan, you like the vision for the future? Any hands? I'm certainly one of those. And brutal honesty, how many of you really like the present? You thrive on it, you do what you want. And the old religious science CSL question, how many of you would really like to absolutely live in the present right now? Yes. Yeah. So it's sort of a trick question, because I told you to choose one. But I could talk about that for 20 minutes, but what I really want to talk about is these great science of mind principles and philosophy. I want to brag on them for us. And really, in this talk today, I want us to use all of them, because we know that they're all useful to us. We know that the past, if we watch what we were putting out and seeing what happened in our life in the past, we can change it. And the future's pretty good. I mean, the future's pretty good because we have to save some money to pay rent for next month, don't we? And the one thing that we always love here, which is if you do nothing else, have a spiritual practice. Well, it might help to plan for a spiritual practice instead of just letting it happen. So we're all there. So we're going to use these wonderful concepts of the past, the present, and the now. And everyone knows, or you've been told over and over again, that you can do nothing in the past or the future. All the power is what you do at this very moment with your thoughts and with your actions. So we use all three. But I want to talk about our principles because I don't think they're naive and simple. I think they're empowering and life-changing. And I want to talk about three basic principles. And the one that locked me in was that we believe that life goes from an invisible realm and flows into a visible realm. That's the mystery of our teachings, but that's the power behind it. And what locked me in is when my mom took me to my first religious science church when I was 8 years old. The word that I loved the most was the word metaphysical. And so I went home and I said, Mom, what does metaphysical stand for? She says, look it up. And I did, and it says beyond the physical. And I thought, how great and empowering is that? I have a tool that I can use for the rest of my life that's going to make my life better. And no one else can tell me that it won't work. And the second principle that is so great about what we do is that everything begins as an idea in the mind of God. And all we have to do is be at one with the mind of God, and it's our idea. And that idea that happens in the mind of God, we believe in this thing we call the universal law, some of us call it the law of mind, that says, whatever you want to call it, God, love, spirit, life, there's a part of this divine that absolutely knows how to turn thoughts into things. It doesn't know, I'm dropping the seed. It could be a pristine seed when I had all the illumination and I was in touch with the divine. Or it could be this seed where I was feeling bad about myself. And all the universal law is like the creative soil knows how to do is manifest that into the idea that was put into it. And in the Bible it says, in Genesis, it says, let there be light, water, whatever. It's calling forth the idea into reality. But see, the Bible supports our philosophy. It also says this, thou shalt decree a thing and it should be established unto you. So as we think a thing and we own it, and my definition of decree in this statement is we absolutely own it on a conscious level. Decree means we believe it. We don't think we don't believe it. We know we believe it. Because we have this beautiful teaching that there's extraordinary power in believed thought, because these thoughts don't just linger around in our mind. What do? They go forward. Because the one thing in this life experience you cannot turn off is the creative process. You may feel like you want to at a time, but you're always creating. Your thoughts are always creating your reality. And and it's interesting that in quantum physics, we have a very similar thing, because now science and religion are coming together. But I have a quote I want to read to you that Ernest Holmes wrote in the 1950s. And he says this. He says, religion and science don't need to be at war with one another. We look forward to the day where science and religion can walk hand in hand into the invisible. And believe me, quantum physics tells you the same thing. Because when I was studying quantum physics in college, I hated the equations. They were very complex, and at the end they told you nothing. So from a quantum physics standpoint, our bodies we see as solid, our chairs we see as solid. But when we look at it on a smaller and smaller level, we get to the concept it's all perception, it's all probabilities, and it all might be there and might not be there, depending on the who's looking at it. So that brings us to the third principle. The first two lead to it, is that we have this wonderful thing we call conscious awareness. And so you are a spiritual dynamo because you are connected to the mind of God, and you're connected to this wonderful infinite law that produces the thought that goes into it. But we always have this troubling thing we call choice. And so if you were having a conversation with Spirit or God or love or life, whatever you want to call it, the conversation would go like this. It would go, I've already given you absolutely everything that you need. You all have all the tools. You have all the illumination. You have everything you need to create a beautiful, radiant, joyful life. And it's up to you. I've given that to you. It's my gift to you. And where we get in the way is we belittle ourselves. And when we talk about these barriers between us and the divine, they're all of our own barrier by us choosing to not look at who we truly are. So you've arrived, you have this wonderful person that you know, and so now, that's sort of esoterical. We all sort of know that. You've heard it all before, and I think most of you would agree with it. But how can we take that and bring it into our life this week? So I have a 3-step method I'll give to you that I think you can go use and apply and create more of, bring these gifts that we always have had more into play in your life. The first one is bless where you are. How good are we, truthfully, at demeaning ourselves and others? We're pretty good at it. So the thing about it is you've got to start with where you are. And to do that, you have to look at yourself. And you have to look at yourself not in a demeaning way, but in a very compassionate and loving and caring way. Because if you don't look at what's going on in your life, if you don't passionately look at the seeds that you planted and the results that you've gotten, you're saying to yourself that I didn't have any control. And if I don't have any control, how can I fix this? One of my favorite philosophers is Wayne Dyer. He says, if you know you have the power to change your mind and to change your life, what are you worrying about? Mm-hmm. And the other thing he says, and it's my favorite quote of his, is, there's nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. Mm-hmm. So, bless where you are, and you got to start where you are. There's a great story. It's about a man named Bob. He had a stroke. And Bob used to be in the improv comedian circuit. And he checked into the rehab center. And all he could move was the one finger. But he knew as an improv comedian, what do they always say? They say, work with what you got. So he would work that finger. And he wasn't beating himself up about all the other parts that weren't working. He was using what he had. He was working with what he had. And pretty soon his arm started working his hand, and he could high-five people, and he high-fived people. But he kept focusing on where he was and kept moving forward and didn't beat himself on where he was. He was looking on where he wanted to go, and he was blessing, and every time he moved his hand, he said thank you to his hand. So in a few months, He walked you out of the rehab center, fully functional and blessed, and there wasn't all this angst and trauma for the journey, because at the end, he was blessing where he was. Because we have to start where we are. We cannot say, if I was like so-and-so, I could do better. If I have a relationship, I can do better. If I get this degree, I can do better. We have to start where we are. And we have to bless where we are. Because if we're spending all of our time beating up on ourselves, we're never going to make the journey. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And the first step is to bless where we are. The second step is to dream our dreams. Open up to your dreams, absolutely. So the divine is always inspirational. It's just we have these limited stories that we buy into that play for ourselves. So always open up to your dreams. Don't let these self-inflicted stories get in the way. Because how many of us have had dreams and just said, oh, that will never come to pass? Yeah, so does anyone here know who Tom Monahan is? Okay, so Tom Monahan is the owner of Domino's Pizza. So the urban legend, this is Wikipedia, so I don't know if it's true or not, but the urban legend was that they had a failing pizza establishment with his brother. And Janice will enjoy this one. And Tom bought his brother out of the business for a VW Bug. And so instead of following this failing business, he had an insight that I'm going to do away with the sit-down pizza business. I'm going to deliver pizzas. And now he's second in the world to producing and selling pizzas, I think short of Pizza Hut. So we can listen to our creative thoughts. We can dream our dreams. And for me, the most important thing is that we put our heart behind it. So we can bless where we are, know we're starting from a great space, and know that we love ourselves where we are. We can dream our dreams, but we have to do one more thing. And it's a tricky thing that we have to do, because we don't think we have to do it. We want to have one thought and then it's there. We have to build up our acceptance of that dream. We have to build up our acceptance of the new thought. One of our great teachers, and Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of our philosophy, was her last student, was Emma Curtis Hopkins. And she told us to do this. Find something inspirational, wisdom-based, or something that builds you up. Every day, read it for 15 minutes. Write about it for 15 minutes. And then meditate on it for 15 minutes. So why do we have to do this? Because we're creatures of habit. 90% of what we think is done on the subconscious level. So we all do it differently. Some of us, like my beloved Nicole, puts affirmations everywhere that we see. But for me, the most confirming, convicting thing that I can do is I can sit with my idea and I can put my heart behind it and I can feel what my life is like with the fruition of this idea as if it's happening to me right now. So for me, the most important thing we can do is put our heart behind it. And so I love these new principles. I love the word metaphysics. I always have. And it was interesting because some of you see me over there when I'm putting my talks together. And it was interesting because I was 90% of the way through to putting this talk to fruition. And that's a shared space. So Wenda has our junior high program there. And she put something on the wall for them. And it was interesting, and I want to share it with you. And this is what it is. It says, Dream it, believe it, achieve it. That's the talk that I just gave to you. So imagine what all the good path that we're putting our teens on. They're living the dream and using the tools that I just talked to you about at a very, very early age. Thank you very much.